Hey everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a nice four-game Major League Baseball slate. We have two weather concerns in this one now. The Philadelphia game and the Boston game both have weather concerns, so you do want to keep track of that closer to the slate. Before I get started, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? It really helps the channel a lot. Really do appreciate it, guys. Thank you guys for joining memberships and stuff like that too. And make sure to check out Discord in the link in the description, so everything can be down in the link in the description there. Let's go and get into the slate here. So we're going to start with Aaron Nola for Philly. He's only had 3 games in the last 7 over 20 fantasy points, but he does face Washington, who he's been pretty good against, where he had 2 games last year over 20 fantasy points against them in his 4 starts. If he can get over 7 or 8 strikeouts, he can pay off here. He's been really inconsistent throughout the year, though, so do keep that in mind. But with a small slate and a limited set of pitchers, he's definitely viable on this one. Clayton Kershaw is a good pitcher, though this is going to be his first start in over a month. He may be somewhat limited today. In fact, I would expect him to be, especially with his injury being inflammation. He has as much upside as anybody on the slate, but he is in a plus matchup, but he does feel hard to trust due to the injury, but he's high risk, high reward in this situation. James Paxton is also in play for Boston. He started the season with 7 fantasy point games out of the first 9, though in the last 5 he's produced 1 fantasy point game. And while the matchup is okay here, he does draw some risk as a result because he hasn't hit the ball. He hasn't been pitching very well recently, but he does draw some good metrics for this one. And you may not have any pitchers today that hit over 20 fantasy points the way this looks. And so, even taking a chance on Kershaw is definitely a viable option today. A value option potentially would be Little for the Tampa Bay. Though he is extremely high risk and high reward, as he probably won't go a ton of innings. I would probably like him more if he was $4,000 on this particular slate. Moving to our catchers here, we're going to start with a Will Smith for the Dodgers. Now, he's been inconsistent throughout the season, but he does draw good home run metrics, and that's where he is a viable option. I don't love his batting average recently, but he does draw potential and has potential to get some good fantasy point games, even when he doesn't hit a home run. JT Realmuto is more of a home run boomer best play today, though he is in a similar price range as Will Smith. He is viable, though he's high risk, high reward because he does need a home run to pay off here. Freddie Fermin also in play for Kansas City. Now, I do want to preface to say that Paxton's one of the better pitchers on the slate, and so Kansas City is a risky team to roster, but he's hit the ball very well over the last 10 games with a 333 average. He's also getting home runs. I don't necessarily expect the home runs to keep up or even the batting average to stay this high, but if he's hitting well and he's in the lineup, then he's definitely somebody to consider, but he is risky with the matchup to pitching. I also like Wilson Contreras for St. Louis, as he's a viable option today. He's hit the ball really well with a 300 batting average the last 10, and he's got a great matchup here against Little, or Littell, I guess is how you say his name, which does have some upside, but he is going to be limited innings, and so that does give Wilson some nice potential here. Moving to first base, we're going to look at Yandy Diaz first for Tampa Bay. Now, he does draw really good upside. He's hit the ball very well recently. He has nice metrics, and he does draw home run potential today. He has not struck out too much lately either, but he's hitting 341 over the last 10, and he's even scoring good fantasy points without home runs. But Alec Boom is also in play. Now, he can play first or third base. He's hit the ball absolutely incredible recently with a 400 average over the last 10 games. He's had 3 home runs in that situation as well. He's also just not striking out much. He's just making good contact. And while he's hitting this well, he's definitely going to be somebody to consider, especially in a plus matchup against Patrick Corbin, who has been absolutely terrible throughout the season. And then Freddie Freeman also in play for the Dodgers. And, I mean, my goodness, he's hit the ball just absolutely insane for the last 10 games with a 524 batting average over that stretch. He's a great option on the slate and has all sorts of good metrics, though he is extremely expensive and hard to roster as a result. Moving to second base, we'll look at Mookie Betts. Now, he can play in the outfield as well, but he's hitting the ball very well with a 341 average. He's kind of a more contrarian option off of Freddie, who's hitting the ball a lot better, but the thing is that they're both really solid, and Mookie can play second base or outfield, whereas Freddie can only play first, and that gives him a lot of potential as a result of multiple places he can play. I will say, though, he is hard to roster with the price range and the limited pitchers. Trevor Story is in play today as well for Boston. Now, he is $5,000, and he is hard to roster on this slate because of the price, and especially the fact he's played 2 games and he's went 0 for 4 in both with 6 total strikeouts and 8 at-bats. But he is viable as a good home run player and sometimes has really nice upside, and this is definitely a game where he does draw the upside if he can get some hits. Then we'll look at Ahmad Rosario. Now, he has hit the ball very well since he's been with the Dodgers, and I do like his potential. He has managed a couple home runs as well, which is not really his cup of tea, but I won't expect a home run here, but I do think he's a viable option from a hitting perspective if he does draw the start. Nolan Gorman, also in play for St. Louis. He has hit the ball pretty solidly recently. He's also hitting home runs at a pretty good clip, a little bit better than I expected him to be, and he's really got good metrics here. He's just hitting the ball solid, though he doesn't tend to score a ton of fantasy points unless he does hit a home run, but he's definitely capable on this particular slate. And then Samad Taylor for Kansas City, also interesting and can play in outfield as well. In his last couple of games that he started, he's actually hit the ball very well. I do like his potential from that perspective. He seems like he's hitting the ball and seeing where it's going to be and not striking out much either. So I do, and he also has some stolen base upside as well, so that does give him some viability on the slate. Maybe in the third base, Alec Boom can also play at third base. Isaac Parada is also in play for Tampa Bay. I really like his potential here with home runs, though he has been a little bit more inconsistent than some of the other guys. He does draw a lot of home run upside in this matchup, and he does hit them at a high clip, so that is positive for him on this particular slate. Miguel Garcia also in play for Kansas City. Again, Kansas City is a little bit risky today, but I do like some options here. And he's definitely one of them. If you were to go with the Kansas City stack, him and Furman would be the two that I like the most, as he draws really good metrics. He's also hit the ball very well and has some stolen base potential as well. He's really improved as the season's gone on, though he's not a big home run threat. He definitely has that viability from just a pure hitting perspective. Moving into shortstops, we'll look at Trey Turner. For Philly, he's hit the ball pretty inconsistent throughout the year, but he does draw some home run metrics for this game. He tends to hit the ball pretty well, but he doesn't always score a ton of fantasy points as a result, so he's a little bit overpriced due to that. Bobby Witt Jr., though, it has hit the ball extremely well with a 390 batting average over the last 10 games. He has stolen base potential and home run potential in this one. I do like his upside, but like I said, if you're going with the Kansas City stack, I would use him, but otherwise I'd probably avoid Kansas City, depending on if you use Paxton as a pitcher today. It's going to be a little bit of a wonky pitching slate. So Wander Franco also in play, as he's hit the ball very well lately, with over 400 batting average over the last 10 and averaging 13 fantasy points a game in that stretch. He's had 5 home runs. He's also got a little bit of stolen base potential as well, though he's only had 1 in the last 10 games. He does tend to have some stretches of games where he's had a bunch. So I do like his upside in this one. He's also had 3 games with 3 hits in the last 4. So he's hitting about as good as anybody, and he draws a fantastic matchup here as well. And then Ahmad Rosario can also play here at shortstop, which he can also play at second base. Maybe in the outfielders, we'll look at Mookie Betts. He can play here in the outfield as well. He's obviously very expensive. Randy A. from Tampa Bay also in play, though he has not hit the ball very well recently. He does draw good metrics for this game, and he's a very viable option as a great home run potential guy. Nick Castellanos is a guy I really like a lot today. If he were a little bit cheaper, he would have been a core play, but he's hitting the ball very well. He's got a great matchup here against Corbin, and I do think that Philly will hit some home runs today, and he's hit 5 in the last 10. That gives him a lot of potential here. Rob Refsnyder is a very risky play today, but he is kind of a Hail Mary play for Boston. He tends to have certain situations where he looks really solid, and this is one of them. I do like his potential in this one, and he has some good hitting metrics for this matchup. Then we'll look at Lars Nootbaar for St. Louis. Now, he has been very consistent recently, as he's hitting the ball very solidly. He's not striking out much, and he's getting some multi-hit games as well. So his total fantasy points per game is a little bit lower than some other guys at this position, especially in his price range. He's a viable option today for a home run, and I do like his upside. Harold Ramirez for Tampa Bay also in play, but he is high risk, high reward. He's hit the ball very well recently, but he's not starting most games, so he does need to draw a start to pay off here, but he does draw some low-end home run upside as well. And then Yoshida for Boston is in play today for though he is a little bit expensive and he's been a little bit streaky recently. he is starting to hit the ball pretty good the last few games, so that gives me some gives him some potential here. With that said, guys, let's get into our FanDuel picks. Oopsie, FanDuel here. So our top three pitchers are going to be Nola, Kershaw, and Paxton, but I think I like Nola and Paxton the best, where Kershaw is a little bit riskier today due to potentially not playing as much. Moving our catchers and first baseman, Diaz, Boom, and Will Smith are all great options on the slate. They all have good metrics and good matchups, and I like their potentials. Freddie Freeman's a little bit expensive, but if you can roster him, if you go cheap with a pitcher and go with a high risk guy, then you could roster him and he could hit a home run today, which he has a lot of upside in this particular matchup. JT Realmuto is also in play as a contrarian option, though he is nice and cheap. He is kind of a boomer bust play. Moving to second baseman, we'll look at Mookie Betts and Trevor Story and Isaac Paredes first. These three guys all have really good home run upside. I do like Paredes a lot. Mookie Betts is obviously very expensive today, but he is viable. And then Trevor Story is priced fairly, though again he hasn't hit the ball so far very well, as he's only played in 2 games and he's had 6 strikeouts with no hits. Nolan Gorman is also in play for St. Louis. He's got some nice upside in this matchup. And then Samad Taylor is kind of a Hail Mary play for Kansas City with a guy with stolen base upside in this particular situation. Then at third base, we have Yandy Diaz and Alec Boom and Isaac Paredes. Guys you've seen at other positions already. There's a lot of multi-position options here and on FanDuel today, so that gives them a lot of mix and match opportunities, and they're all viable. Nolan Gorman also here, and then Miguel Garcia is nice and cheap, though he does face a tough matchup against Paxton today. Moving to shortstop, Mookie Betts is the expensive option. Excuse me. As I already mentioned, he can play second base or outfield. Trey Turner is a little bit underpriced, so he hasn't hit the ball very well recently. He does draw good metrics for this one. Trevor Story can also play here. Bobby Witt, if you go with the Kansas City stack, is a viable option, as he's hit the ball pretty well recently and has great metrics for this game. Wander Franco also in play for Tampa Bay. I like Bobby Witt and Franco a lot, but they are a little bit overpriced. And then Ahmad Rosario is a contrarian play for the Dodgers, who doesn't have a ton of home run upside, but he has hit the ball well recently. Mookie Betts is also in play in outfield. Randy A for Tampa Bay is in play. He's actually fairly priced here, though he has been inconsistent recently. Nick Castellanos is a guy I really like today, and his price is great. Rob Refsnyder is a little bit underpriced. He is cheap, but he is a Hail Mary play on the slate. He's not a huge home run guy either. He's just a guy that could get some hits and pay off at this price point. Lars Nootbaar also hit the inconsistent throughout the season, but he does draw good metrics for this game and has some viability. Harold Ramirez has hit the ball well recently, but he does need to start to really have some opportunity to pay off here. And then Masataka Yoshida for Boston also driving really good metrics today. He's been a little bit inconsistent recently, but he does draw home run potential, and he's priced pretty fairly here on FanDuel. So with that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below, and have a nice day, guys.